Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I am.
It's not really dangerous ideas.
Oh yeah, that's right. Let me take the brand off there. This is called Common Censored. When Eleanor's here, and she loves when I screw that up. Please welcome Eleanor Goldfield. You didn't get always amazing this time for that attitude.
Good.
Not always amazing. Hello, everybody. Welcome on this anniversary of the death of a John F. Kennedy. We're going to get into a bunch of things. I'm going to address the Kennedy thing in a second, but we're going to get into the hidden side of U.S. prisons. One of the craziest thing that gets like zero media coverage. So I'm glad you brought it to my attention. We're going to get into the House bill. I mentioned it yesterday, but we're going to talk about a little more. The House bill to crush nonprofits.
9495.
Someone with Tourette's just yelled 9495. That's designed to crush nonprofits that are speaking out against genocide. We're going to get into so much more. I have like a million other little stories we'll be getting into. All that. Oh, yeah, the Pentagon's response to the arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant. All of that's coming up. Please hit thumbs up, hit share. We are some of the most suppressed. What would you call yourself? Journalist?
What would you call yourself?
What do you want to go by?
Who am I, Lee?
What do you want to go by?
Eleanor.
Say you don't have the answer. One of the most suppressed Eleanors on the interwebs, as well as me.
True. I think that's probably true.
Okay. Just real quick, it is the anniversary of the assassination of JFK. No one knows who did it, or government, but one day we're gonna figure it out. Anyway, Glenn Greenwald made this point. The assassination of JFK happened more than 60 years ago. Not only are there still close to 5,000 government documents about the event concealed and classified, but CIA, FBI went ballistic when Trump was ready to release them. And of course, Trump, being the failure he is, failed to actually release them. And Glenn says that says all you need to know about secrecy of power. It certainly says a lot about secrecy, but I think it says even more about what is in those papers. You know, I don't think Trump would have collapsed and been like, okay, that's let's keep them classified if it was just like a sponge cake recipe that the CIA had.
Bill Hicks has a whole joke about this.
Does he? No,
Not
about the window. About the window.
No, about how they show this video to every president.
Oh, that bit about for the first day they show you a video of the assassination of JFK, and to me, like the fact that he, by the way, he then said to confidants, apparently, Judge Napolitano said this. I played the clip.
Trump, not Bill Hicks.
Yeah. Trump said this to confidants that he said, if you'd seen what I've seen, you wouldn't have declassified them either, which to me just was like, yeah, it's kind of become an open secret that our government executed JFK.
But here's my thing. If there's evidence that the government did it, why would someone like Trump not just
Because I think even as full of himself and as deluded about reality as he is, probably thinks he doesn't want the CIA, the FBI, and others against him, at least not that much. Like if he reveals they killed one of the most beloved presidents in U.S. history, I think he thinks they might come for him next. Here's the thing. He's not actually a strong guy. I know people call him a strong man, but he'll back down when he thinks it.
No, I don't think he's got like a spine or anything.
Means his hide.
I don't think he's got. Yeah, no, he doesn't have any principles. It just seems like he wants to shit in every punch bowl. So it's like this seems like the ultimate shit in a punch bowl to me. But I don't know.
No, this is the punch bowl he needs to not be executed and to continue to own our government. Like, you notice he's not talking about defunding the CIA. He's not talking about breaking them into 1,000 pieces the way JFK did.
Well, no, again, he doesn't have any principles, but
no, but he knows he doesn't want them.
Okay.
Like he's not.
I don't think we need
he's
to
not.
spend any more time on this. I
don't understand what you don't understand. He's not that bright, but he understands a laser pointer will be on his forehead. I mean, it may already be, but it would certainly become a lot more lasers on his forehead if he were to just out the CIA as actually killing JFK.
Well, yeah, but then the CIA can't actually just kill him because it would be too obvious.
You would have said the same thing about JFK.
No, but but a lot of people don't think that the CIA killed JFK. So it's like, you know.
Anyway, happy anniversary, everybody! Of the you don't hear a lot of people talk about the fact that we live in post-coup America. Like the United States was couped by the forces within the CIA and FBI, and we're still living in that fucking hellhole. Like this is post-coup America, and I think that like reality needs to settle in for a lot of people.
Though we didn't really have democracy or a republic before it either. So.
I didn't say anything about democracy.
No, you're so prickly today.
You're so
I'm
prickly.
just saying, and also.
Yes, true. We very much did. In fact, JFK helped.
Is it that time of the month?
That was anti-women. Very anti-women over here. In fact, JFK helped rig his election to win, right? A lot of dead people voting in Chicago.
Wait, what?
A lot of dead people voted in Chicago.
When?
For JFK.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Let's. I want to play a clip real quick of the.
What happened to the Disney villain and the familiar?
I know they're always switching them up, but this is well, she's in front of the Pentagon logo. I actually don't know which spokesperson this is. Is it the Pentagon spokesperson? Anyway, maybe someone in the chat can tell me which spokesperson this is. But
using starvation as
the answer. But
hey, phone a friend.
This is her response to the Netanyahu arrest warrant and this hilarious back and forth with the reporter. He's hard to hear at first, but it gets much better to hear. The answers don't get better. The answers are atrocious.
Speaking of the rules-based order that say you're defending, the ICC today issued 2 warrants against with the Prime Minister of Israel, Mr. Netanyahu, and former Defense Minister, Mr. Gallant, alleging that they committed crimes against humanity, war crimes, including using starvation as a tool of war, a weapon of war. What do you think of that decision, and will it cause the department and the secretary to rethink the support you're providing Israel with in its war in Gaza?
Thanks, Fadi, for the question. So the United States fundamentally rejects the court's decision to issue these arrest warrants for senior Israeli officials. We remain concerned by the prosecutor's rush to seek arrest warrants and
rush. A year of genocide. It was a rush. It was a rush to seek arrest warrants.
You know, some of the processes that this has played out in. And again, we've been very clear that the ICC does not have jurisdiction over this matter. So, you know, we're in coordination with our partners, including Israel, discussing
the idea that they don't have jurisdiction because Israel refused to sign on, but they say they have jurisdiction under Palestine. They don't need Israel's permission.
Next steps. I'm not going to have much more for you, as I might refer you to the State Department and the White House for a little bit more. But in terms of our support for Israel, we're continuing to support Israel with the assistance it needs in its, you know, fight against Hamas and Lebanese Hezbollah. But that doesn't mean that we can't continue to make clear our concerns on the conduct and how they are conducting those operations, whether it be in Gaza or on the northern border.
So you're rejecting the decision based on, I guess, technicalities and jurisdiction. What do you think of the allegations?
Right. This is a great question. She said we are ignoring, we disagree with the jurisdiction, but what do you think of what's actually in the document, whether you disagree with the jurisdiction or not?
Committing war crimes and crimes against humanity.
Again, we don't see eye to eye on where the ICC is. And as I've said, we reject the court's decision to issue these arrest warrants. So I think that pretty much implies that we don't agree with that decision.
Okay, so what is the legal opinion you're basing your rejection on? Did the department issue any legal opinion on what's been happening in Gaza? Did you study any incidents that were mentioned in the ICC decision?
I'm not aware of a formal legal opinion being issued by this department. I think you've asked me that before. Some of the things that, you know, either public reports or private reports or reports from, NGOs, we always take those seriously. And we've had those conversations from here at the podium. And when Minister Gallant was in the seat previously, the secretary was regularly engaging with him about what was happening in Gaza, what was happening on that northern border in Lebanon. And I mean, we take it so seriously that
what was happening is a way of saying genocide. I don't know if you knew that. Those are synonyms. What was happening there? Things were happening.
Installed a maritime corridor to get aid into Gaza.
Oh my
So
God, you used the corridor. You used that floating piece of shite to send U.S. troops to murder Palestinians who were sheltering in tents.
Yeah. It was there for about a week, and then they took it apart.
Also, can I just point out...
Because they didn't know there'd be waves.
Can I just point out that it's a non-white woman?
Oh my God, it's such a relief to hear this coming from a woman of color.
Just like every time the person who raises their hand at the UN, not a white dude, is it?
I feel a lot better about genocide coverage, like running cover for genocide when it's not a white guy. I don't know about you.
It's something that we're going to continue to engage with the Israelis on, and we have people in the region right now engaging on these issues that you're raising. So again, I'm not aware of like a legal review coming from this building, but all the issues that you raise every single day, whether it be here in this briefing room or in our office, we take very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
So if you don't have any legal assessment, how can you reject what's been presented by a legal body, one of the highest, it's an international law court? How can you reject it if you don't have a legal assessment? Is it a political rejection? And if you don't have a legal assessment?
Yeah, again, Fadi, I'm just not going to have more for you to provide other than what I said is that we reject the court's decision. That doesn't necessarily mean that it has to go through a legal process. We can reject decisions from the court that come down in various forums. We're in discussions with our partners, including Israel, on next steps, but I'm just not going to have more for you.
That's the equivalent of just yelling because.
Mm-hmm.
But what is it about it that you reject? Because. But okay, but specifically legally, because that's what that is. These people are human garbage. But you're right. It does feel good that it's not a white person. That felt pretty good. You wanted to show a moment of Trudeau responding to this.
Yeah.
Song, CBC News. Now that the ICC has issued warrants for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and
go ahead.
Why is this in somebody's kitchen? What is going on here?
So for those listening to the podcast, for some reason there is a podium in his kitchen, and I had made the point that perhaps this is something that people in Canada have gotten used to. Like maybe there was an announcement, he's been doing this for a year in his kitchen. I don't know. Is anyone in Canada can tell us whether he always does his press conferences from his kitchen?
I was just scrolling and then I see Trudeau in the kitchen and I'm like, did somebody catch him in the middle of making a sandwich and ask him about the ICC decision? Like, what is going on here?
Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, Canadian law enforcement is obligated to arrest them should they come to Canada. Will you allow that to happen, or will you step in to prevent an arrest?
First of all, as Canada has always said, it's really important that everyone abide by international law.
Also, whoever's to his left, is that his wife? Looks like so uncomfortable.
It looks like he is ripping them hard. There's her face
or
is
whatever
not happy.
He made in that kitchen is really disagreeing with her. It's not sitting well.
But this is the funniest press conference because I don't know whether this has been going on for 3 years and Trudeau always does these things from his kitchen, but it's meant to obviously look like I'm just one of you, right?
Because
but you can't have a podium
I know.
in the fucking kitchen and go.
We all have podiums in our kitchen where we speak to the nation.
I am so you just flipped on a camera and I was here getting my breakfast.
At my podium, like I do.
Just couldn't look more fake. And then he's got the bookshelf behind me looks more real than this. And he's got his sleeves rolled up like he's working hard in the kitchen. And all these perfectly, carefully presented fruits are behind
I mean, it
him.
looks like an Airbnb a little bit. You know, when you walk into an Airbnb and there's like a bowl of fruit, but it's all fake fruit. And then there's like, you know, a coffee maker that doesn't really work, but it looks really nice. That's what this aesthetic is.
It looks like the kitchen display from like IKEA where you're thinking of buying a cabinet and they put fake fruit in
right. Although Trudeau's in IKEA. But so the bottom line here is that Trudeau says that Canada will abide by it. So that's what he's saying. But I couldn't focus on that till like the third time I watched this because I was just so thrown by dude being in someone's kitchen.
Someone in Canada will have to let us know whether this is the norm for.
Yeah, like does he always do this?
Maybe the podium's in a different room every day.
Is he ever in the bathroom?
Yeah, one day it's his bathroom, one day it's down in the basement.
Oh my god. It's funny that like the substance of what he's saying is way better than what the Pentagon spokesperson was saying, but she has like the official background, so it feels more serious. It's all like, you know.
Yeah, but it was all. But even though he said like we'll abide by international law, if Netanyahu landed in Canada, they really gonna arrest him, or is
Well,
that
and I
just a
think most of
bullshit?
these countries know that. Okay, so Netanyahu's not going to go to your country. Like, you just get. I mean, Trudeau gets like brownie points for
saying that.
Because it's then that's the thing. It's like it's actually kind of a no-brainer unless you are such a genocidal piece of shit like the United States. You could just say yes and then know that Netanyahu's not going to come here.
It would be.
So it's like it would be really easy for you to say, yeah, we'll abide by it.
It would be amazing if like Netanyahu comes to Canada, they arrest him, the U.S. invades Canada with the Hague Invasion Act. Like it'd just be this whole amazing spiral. I think the key.
I've never forgiven them for winning the War of 1812 personally.
Oh, how the U.S. lost the War of 1812?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that. There's an episode of Government Secrets about that. It's the way we're taught the War of 1812 when I was in school was not that the U.S. basically achieved absolutely nothing.
Because the U.S. is not allowed to lose any wars. We also don't get taught that the U.S. lost Vietnam. We're just like, we just left. Why'd you leave?
It's different. Yeah, leaving is different than losing. I think we need to trick Netanyahu to come to one of the countries where he can be arrested. That's the next step. Like if we could tell him that there's like a, you know, like like a Palestinian child who's living their best life and, you know, in Latvia and hasn't been harassed at all. Like, do you think he'd be like, I'm on it? Might help. Okay, we're shifting gears to our main story it's specifically about one prison, but I think it speaks to U.S. prisons in general.
Content warning, folks.
Yeah.
This is dark.
About the horror show that is U.S. prisons. I often repeat, and I feel like I'm one of the few, I mean, you obviously, but of these indie media people that regularly repeats that the U.S. is the largest prison state in the world. And anyway, go ahead.
So this was a night. Wow. That sentence didn't know where it wanted to go. So let me start over.
It still hasn't figured it out. It's having an identity crisis.
This was sent to me by Truth to Tweet. So thank you
for
suggesting this.
Thank you, Truth to Tweet.
Please feel free all to like suggest stories, and like Lee and I are not all seeing, all knowing. So please do throw things our way. So this is a report by prisonradio.org. And it's actually from late October, and it's about an incident that happened in September, on September 15th in Virginia's Red Onion State Prison. A man named Econ and his cellmate Trayvon Brown set themselves on fire, hoping to escape the intolerable racism, abuse, and inhumane conditions they were subjected to. Econ suffered third-degree burns, and his cellmate's injuries were even worse. These are not isolated acts. In a span of just 2 weeks, a dozen. Okay, I'm sorry. Like
a dozen.
A dozen black men at Red Onion took the same desperate measures, setting themselves ablaze. What?
And it then says that these are not an active protest. I mean, I feel like it's kind of both, but they're mainly human beings driven to extreme lengths to basically free
Commit suicide.
free themselves from their torment.
Kevin Rashid Johnson, who's an activist incarcerated at Red Onion, has reported on these incidents, exposing the extreme cruelty and hopelessness that defines life inside this particular prison. And yet, of course, as we know, this is not just about this one prison. I mean, this is actually my first time hearing about this specific prison.
And this is a super max in the tiny ass corner of Virginia, Wise, Virginia.
So this is like, we've heard of like Rikers as infamous, and the like Angola and stuff like that down in Louisiana. So there's like several prisons that you hear a lot about, but imagine how indicative that is of all the stories that you don't hear. And I actually interviewed a prisoner journalist who talks about all the stories that he brings to light and the extreme abuse, physical, mental, and emotional, that he suffers for bringing these to light. And there's this really incredible moment where he's recounting this to me, where he was brought to the warden's office and told and said, like, hey, do you see the, his name's Jeremy. Do you see the wall there? Jeremy Busby. And Jeremy's like, yeah, I do. And he's like, what is that wall for? And Jeremy says, well, warden, it's to keep us in. And he said, no, it's to keep the world out. And basically he was saying, like, you're exposing the world to what goes on in here, and that's unacceptable. And so he was basically threatening him, and they've tried to silence him, in basically including trying to kill him for releasing these stories. So the amount of information that we don't know about what's going on in these prisons is legion. I mean, we have no idea the extent. Yeah. And the only reason that we're hearing about this, because guess what? CNN has yet to pick up on this. It's been like 2 months. The only reason we're hearing about this is because there is a prisoner journalist, this Kevin Rashid Johnson, who is willing to risk his life in giving us that information.
His life and his comfort. I mean, when they're not trying to kill him, they're putting him in solitary confinement. They're taking away all the privileges he had, which of course can often be the only thing that keeps you going in prison, where it's like you can't call your family anymore, those type of things.
Yeah. And some of the things that Jeremy Busby talked about in my interview with him, which you can check out at projectcensor.org, was that they would, you're required by law to allow people to meet with their legal team, unless, of course, there's always some unless they've, they're under like some kind of, psychological evaluation, or, they had to be moved for safety reasons or something. So there's some loopholes that you can work with to ensure that somebody doesn't even get to meet with their lawyers. And they've done this to Jeremy consistently. So this is just what somebody has to experience just for trying to tell the truth about what's going on in prisons. So it's really horrifying to even think about this and then realize that this is but a microcosm of what's happening in these prisons, and who's going to be held accountable for this. It's not like there's going to be somebody that is then, oh, well, obviously this is horrific, we have to make sure that this abuse doesn't nobody's going to do that.
Yeah, and Ben in the comment section makes a good point. He says if this was in Russia or Iran, it would be a huge story. And to think of that in a much larger sense, everything about U.S. prisons is basically ignored while we point the finger at, Russia or Iran or China and say, oh, you're imprisoning people, et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, the United States is the largest prison state in the world, the largest the world has ever seen. both the sheer number, 2.3 million people in prison every single day. But then on top of that, the per capita number is also higher than anywhere else in the world. China, the per capita number is less than a third what the United States is. So it's like the hypocrisy is amazing for us to say we're this free country, right? We represent the free world, all of this free garbage. And meanwhile, we are locking up more human beings. And one of the longer bits, obviously it's comedy, but I always mix those things with facts and truth and stuff. One of the longer bits I'm going to do in the Zoom comedy special coming up in December is about how many people are locked up in these prisons that we could free, we could replace with rehab programs, we could replace with other types of things. And it's utterly insane to have all these people locked up, but it's designed to protect the fascist state, protect the status quo, protect the property of the rich, protect this status quo inequality, gut-wrenching inequality that we have in this country. And so that's why largely all these people are locked up. And it obviously is perfectly intertwined with our fascist police forces and making sure that mostly the poor, but obviously there's a racial aspect as well, but the poor and the non-white are in the system, are locked up, are at least at times locked up. 1 out of every 3 black men in this country at some point will be put into prison. This is not because they're uniquely violent or uniquely crime committers. It is because the system is meant to do that.
Rosie Martinez and Robin have good comments. Just throwing that out there.
Rosie Martinez says in Pennsylvania, they were supposed to cut the prison budget by developing other programs instead of incarceration. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Instead, they decided to cut all the good programs prisoners needed. That sounds about
On
right.
brand.
Yeah, sounds on brand. Robin says prioritizing broken windows over the suffering of the living. And
private property always has precedence over human beings.
Yeah, and they're also, the broken windows policy is the idea of arrest people for tiny things, and then you will make society safer as a whole. And it's been proven false, but it continues to be used in a lot of cities, a lot of states.
And it was never, really about that, because that's just the line that they gave people, but it's really about filling prisons, because when you have a for-profit driven prison system, then you have to and a lot of these states have contracts with these private prison companies that demand a certain amount of beds be filled. Otherwise, the state owes them money.
Yeah, Cosmo Ray brought up that point in the chat as well.
So it's like the states it's kind of like with cops and their arrest quotas, if you give people the demand that people need to be incarcerated or need to be arrested and put in the system, guess what? You're prioritizing those numbers over any kind of semblance of public safety or public health. So, it's all bullshit. And they, of course, know that. But what they peddle us is we have to keep our streets safe. And it's yeah, well, then get your RoboCops out of my face.
Well, yeah, and there's multiple reasons that cities and states like to have a lot of prisons. There's the for-profit thing. Not all of them are for-profit, but a portion are. And then there's also the fact that you can count prisoners in an area, like in Wise, Virginia, as part of your the number of citizens you have living in that area, which means you can get more government subsidies and various benefits of we have this many people. Well, of course, if they're prisoners, they're not getting any of that stuff. They're not getting the benefit of that stuff. But the city can, or the town or whatever, can claim that they have all these people living there. It almost is very referential to slavery, where each slave counts as 3/5 of a person, but the slaves can't vote and they can't get the benefits of being one of the citizens. So what's
Right.
It's laughable, of course. John Kiriakou, the whistleblower who spent time in prison for revealing the U.S. torture program, he has talked a lot about prison reform and what he saw in there. He has talked about how they were often given food that is not safe for human consumption.
It's like got maggots in it and stuff.
Yeah. He said he found bones in the spaghetti.
Spaghetti usually has bones. That's how they make it.
Oh, I hadn't realized that. Thank you, Nadia, for being a member on YouTube, but also for donating. Oh, no, you signed up for 4 months. Okay, I thought it was donating. But anyway, either way, thank you for signing up. Prison Policy Institute calls it prison mandering. Ah, there we go. There's a term for it. Didn't even realize that. He also, Karyaku has also talked about the fact that there's like zero, like the healthcare is garbage in prison, but there's also zero dentistry in prison. And so he had terrible tooth pain, and then they finally take him to a dentist, and the dentist looks at him and says, well, normally I just yank out any tooth that's a problem, but I can tell you're a little different than most of the prisoners. You've had like good dental work, so I'll fix it. Basically saying like, because you're white and because you clearly have had dental work,
Access to healthcare.
I'll go ahead and actually fix this as opposed to just yank out the tooth. This is incredible. Okay, let's get to HR threats.
No, that's not the one.
Oh, that's not it?
No.
Oh, okay. Another law shutting down.
Oh, it's a potpourri, really.
Yeah, well, we are going to circle back to the House vote in a second, but go ahead.
So this is an article by Jewish Currents. They do good work over there. So it's called Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, and it bars schools receiving federal funding from creating or permitting a hostile environment for students on the basis of race or national origin, and mandates that colleges found to have violated the statute must come to an agreement with the federal government to change policies or risk being stripped of their federal funding, which is a big deal for a lot of schools. And so guess who is the target of this Title VI? Yes, pro-Palestinian, anti-Zionist organizers, and like not even like ones like demanding that I don't know, like that, or like having an encampment or taking over buildings, which I neither condone nor condemn. Like these people, like for instance, they give an example of students at Barnard College who wanted to screen and have a discussion about the movie Israelism, which is a documentary which chronicles young American Jews' disaffection with Zionism. So, like, you can't even show a movie about Jews being like, Zionism? Do we like it? Like, wow. And this is part of that really creepy, insidious, bullshittery idea that Zionism equals Judaism, which I've said it before. I'm saying it now. I'll say it again until Zionism is dead and buried. That Zionism is not only the largest threat to Palestinians, of course, it's the largest threat to Jews worldwide.
Yeah.
And that sounds at first blush like, oh, that's not possible. But Zionism is what creates this kind of idea that Judaism is this settler colonial, genocidal ideology, as opposed to a rich culture that has been around for 6,000 years. And in that time, Zionism is like less than a blip.
Right.
And as long as Zionism has existed in Jewish communities, so has anti-Zionism. And so conflating the two is actually a great threat to Jews and is actually anti-Semitic. And I know I've said that before, so sorry for people who are like, yeah, it's okay. But this is shit that's like, they're using civil rights legislation that should be there to protect like non-white and, students from foreign countries coming to study. It should protect them from the white supremacist, xenophobic assholery of the United States as a nation. And instead, it's protecting the white settler colonialist assholery of the United States and its colony Israel in the face of legitimate critique of a genocide. And like, this is an example of how these of how these laws can be twisted so well to support the oppressor. And this goes, I mean, I have a longer diatribe that I could go into about how laws don't actually protect us. But this is one
Who
such
is it
example.
that writes the laws? Is it usually the oppressed or?
Right. And of course, like, and so, I mean, Zionism is an ideology, right? It's not race. It's not even a national origin. It's like saying that settler colonialism is a national origin. No, it's not.
Yeah, could you imagine like saying, I just decided I own this entire city. It's all mine. And they're like, okay, that's a protected race.
Right.
You
Like,
saying that. What?
So basically, this is part of the ongoing effort to really crack down on student organizing, because as we saw this past summer, or like late spring into summer, students are throwing down for Palestine in beautiful and creative ways.
And they're not voting for Democrats.
No, they're not. And so they're not fooled by any of that propaganda. So what do you do if you can't win them with the carrot? You have to use the stick. And you have to basically tell them, well, you're going to be expelled, or in this case, like, your school's at risk if you try to speak out against genocide. So, yeah.
Yeah, one of the many laws targeting these campus protests, these university students, basically, as with Occupy, a lot of cities were like, oh, we need to make sure this never happens again. Well, you had the anti-genocide protests across the U.S. campuses, and so they were like, well, we need to figure out ways to make sure this doesn't happen again.
And of course, the usual suspects are behind this: the Anti-Defamation League, Hillel, those kind of, penis wrinkle organizations that are just desperate to cry anti-Semitism anytime somebody says Palestinians should be allowed to live. And so they're saying that there's like a record number of complaints, Title VI complaints, basically, that schools are afraid that it'll turn into actual lawsuits, in which case, especially if you look at how our government is structured right now, and like what that douche canoe was saying at the Pentagon, that they stand with Israel regardless, and the ICC can go F itself. When you think about that, if you're a college, you're like, well, I don't want to lose my funding just because some kids wanted to watch a movie. It's like, and I'm not saying I excuse them for saying you can't screen this movie, but they're creating a very difficult situation on purpose for these schools. So, not that I'm saying you should do this, friends and comrades, but like, if you were going to do the thing, then it has to be an underground thing that you're doing. If you were to do the thing, which I'm not saying you should.
And moving on to their next step to try and crush pro-Palestine, anti-genocide speech. And I've mentioned it before on this show the other day, that the House has passed this bill that gives Trump a lot more power to basically just name any nonprofit as, quote, supporting terrorism. And then that nonprofit has their status revoked, and there can be other ramifications. 15 Democrats voted with it. It has not been made into law yet, so that is part of the reason that that we're bringing it up.
Yeah, do you remember when Obama was president and he gave Trump this like amazing toolkit for an authoritarian
dictator's toolkit? Yeah,
the biggest surveillance network the world has ever seen. Deporter in chief handing that over,
waging war and firing missiles without any approval through Congress. Not even money needs to be approved by Congress much anymore.
Yeah, and so instead of, and I said this like the day after the election, I was like, so now would really be the time for the Democrats to swing for the fences and just like executive order it up and like do all the things they said they cared about.
Mm-hmm.
like let's do healthcare and let's codify Roe v. Wade and let's ensure that we're that like ecosystems are protected. And then what does Biden Harris administration rush to do? Give Ukraine $6 billion and then shoot missiles into Russia. That is what you think is so
that's what
important
they gotta
to
get
do
done.
before Trump gets into office?
Gotta get it done. Yeah.
So
he could literally, with an executive action, give everyone health care instantly.
yeah.
And instead, he's rushing to shoot bombs into Russia.
And so HR 9495, I know they always have like these, and the actual name of the bill is hilarious.
The Help Kittens Be Happy bill.
The Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act. So why it's called the American Hostages Act is that basically if you're a hostage overseas, they're not going to penalize you for taxes that you miss. I'm not kidding.
What?
I'm not kidding. They're putting
and
it in.
they put those things together.
Yes. Because it's supposed to be this like, I can't believe we're having this conversation kind of situation. And then you just sneak in this, and also nonprofits can F themselves.
More authoritarian power for Trump.
So it's of course one of those situations that they want you to have to say yes. So I think you've already covered what it.
Yeah, I've already covered what it is and everything.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about you have this doc of what people can do.
Right. So I would recommend that people check out Operation Olive Branch on Instagram. That's at Operation Olive Branch on Instagram, and they have in their link tree, which is just like the little link in their bio, and they have a way that you can basically find not your representative because that ship sailed, but find your senator. You can see how your representatives voted on the 12th and the 21st. And they have a template
script
for calling your senator. And here's the thing.
I think that's to avoid you just going, listen, mother. Like,
yes, this is very good for someone like me who tends to get really rageful every time I hear someone say like, Senator Dudu's office. That's triggering for me. So it's good to have this script. So I'll say that because if you know me, you know that I'm not like really into electoralism. I will say that, for instance, like here in Maryland, Van Hollen has been pushed. Like, for instance, he voted against sending arms to Israel with the vote that Bernie Sanders put forward earlier this week. So there is a way to shift certain senators. And here's the thing, it literally takes like 5 minutes to call. So it's not like I'm asking you to go knock on doors and ask people to sign a petition. That doesn't mean dick diddle. I'm saying like,
I met him once.
Make a phone. It literally takes like 5 minutes, not even like 3. And you can just do it like while you're, cooking dinner or whatever. And you just have this script in front of you and you're like, hi, I'm da. And
there's also a factor, in terms of can you push these people? You're right. Most of the time you can't. But there's also a factor of a lot of these idiots, because they're not as bright as some people think they are. A lot of them have not read this thing. They don't know what it is. They literally are like told by an aide, like, oh yeah, you're voting for that. Like,
right.
So these phone calls can actually make them aware sometimes of what's in it.
So basically, I'm putting this out there as that small ask and reminding people that, yes, this is not the be all end all, of course. And there are many more things that we need to do to address the continued like rampage against our basic rights.
Yes.
But I think that this is a small thing that you can do quickly. And it also, I think, helps us to, build solidarity amongst each other, like engaging with organizations like Olive Branch and stuff like that. So again, multitudes.
Okay. I want to make a correction on something I said yesterday. Someone was good enough to point out, but it's interesting that weirdly my error like
Major point.
makes my point for me, which I'll get to that in a second. But so I was talking about the climate crisis, talking about how ridiculous the COP summits are, talking about how terrible Biden and the Biden administration has been for the environment, for a climate crisis. And within that, I believe it was one sentence, I said he didn't even re-sign the Paris Climate Accord because Trump ripped him up, blah, blah, blah. Biden didn't even re-sign it. And someone, thank you very much, brought to my attention that actually Biden did re-sign the Paris Climate Accord, like right when he got into office. So I was wrong on that. I had misspoke. I was thinking about confusing it with the Iran nuclear deal. But here's the thing, though. I was talking about how the Paris Climate Accord is meaningless, and it's like 2 countries or a tiny number of countries have actually kept up with the promises of it. Very, very meaningless climate accord. It was celebrated by big banks and oil companies when it was signed. And so my point was it was meaningless. And then I accidentally said he didn't even re-sign it. He did re-sign it, and nothing changed. So my larger point that it's meaningless actually is even more proven because he re-signed the thing, and they allowed more. The Biden administration allowed more drilling and fracking permits and all this shit than even Trump did. That was not because Trump didn't want to allow oil production. Right. He wanted to allow it all, but his people were slightly less efficient at destroying this planet, I guess. So it weirdly, my mistake makes my point for me. Anyway, wanted to correct that though.
Sally Forth. Who is Sally Forth, by the way?
She was the 3rd child of the 4th family. Just kidding.
3rd child of the 4th family. This is starting to sound like an Abbott and Costello bit.
Well, their last name is Forth.
No, I get it. That's why I'm saying it's.
She was the 3rd child. She was Sally. First? She was Sally the 4th of the 4ths. And then they had a 3rd. And then they had a 5th. Okay. I just want to cover this real quick. Oh, actually, before I do that, let me also make some announcements. One thing is, and I hope this doesn't upset too many of you, but I am always killing myself to do all these live streams. I am going to start making Fridays the members only live stream. So Fridays will be on Locals and then reposted on Patreon. And that will allow me to have that for members, but maybe not have to do so much extra after the other shows. So just making that announcement. Of course, next week is Thanksgiving, so I won't be live streaming that anyway.
Happy genocide holiday.
Robbie, good point, is asking, does this mean no Eleanor? No, Eleanor will be joining me on Thursdays usually. So we'll switch that slightly. But anyway, Fridays will become a members-only live stream at Locals. That's leecamp.net. You can sign up there for a whopping 38 cents an episode and support this show, and that would be amazing. Steven likes the idea. Okay, as long as I have Steven's support, I feel like we can do this. Just it's me and Steven, and I'm right now I'm Tom Cruise with the goldfish. Who's coming with me? Anyway, you never saw whatever that movie was called?
Tom Cruise with the goldfish?
People know what I'm talking about. Renee Zellweger and the football guy who says, show me the money.
Wait, no.
And you had me at hello.
Is that what it is?
I think that's the same movie. What's the name of the movie, folks?
I don't know. I don't remember a goldfish, however.
You don't remember him leaving the office with the goldfish? Jerry Maguire. You don't remember leaving the office with the goldfish?
Oh, no, I don't.
Oh,
I didn't realize that was the pinnacle point of the film that I was supposed to
Absolutely. There's no other reason to watch that film.
Isn't that this is like the falsely remembered history, like in the whatever that movie is that he slides in with his underwear, he's not wearing sunglasses?
Yes, people think that in Risky Business, people think he slides in when he's doing the underwear dance with sunglasses on.
But he's
but the reason is weirder than the fact that he's not wearing sunglasses. The reason is because during the press tour, he was sponsored by Ray-Ban or whatever one of them was. So during the press tour, he's doing interview after interview with those same sunglasses on. So everyone remembers him from the time with the sunglasses on. It's crazy.
So they're conflating memories.
Yeah.
Creepy.
Mandela effect. All right.
There you go.
That was not a sidetrack at all.
I feel this is important information for people. Okay,
Lady would like you to know she despises John Cruise.
I'm with you.
I know.
What
He's
an
a pretty
absolute-
awful Scientologist. Oh my God. Have you ever read? I read one article on what her name's Katie Holmes, right? Had to do to try and leave him and have her kids because she knew that the moment she said she was leaving him, the Scientology would sue the pants off her and steal the kids. So she had to like set it all up with mega lawyers before even anyway. Horrific. It's like it's like being in prison. Anyway, that being said, the other thing I wanted to say is we have another live Zoom comedy event, although Eleanor will be opening without comedy, which is good. Important.
It's better for everyone.
It's better for everyone. Eleanor Goldfield will be opening, as well as Jonathan O'Donnell, Naomi Caravani, two of the correspondents from Redacted tonight, and I will be doing a new hour as well, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun, and it's $5 goddamn bucks. It's $5.
And you don't have to wear pants.
I don't or they don't?
Both. Either.
Yes, no pants.
Actually,
required.
lead can't wear pants. It's mandatory. that he
Mandatory no
not
pants.
Wear pants.
The new No Pants comedy special. But yes, it'll be Zoom. It'll be straight to camera, and you can watch it anywhere in the world. And it's December 11th and 14th. And the tickets are at leecamp.simpletix.com. When you get there, you'll see this page, and you can click on which date you want. leecamp.simpletix.com. I always say there's no reason not to grab a ticket because it's $5. Either you come and you have a great time, or you don't come and you support this show, or you come and you hate it, at which time I will refund your money, I've said, although no one's ever asked, but I will refund your money. So you have nothing to lose. Grab a $5 ticket. leecamp.simpletix.com. Okay. Philip, yes, you have to wear it. Only Philip has to wear a hat. All right. Let's move on. I wanted to talk real quick about Putin has... So there's some argument as to whether Russia has fired this ICBM. Apparently, all of the mainstream media has run with, oh my God, Russia for the first time fired an ICBM into Ukraine as response to U.S. firing long-range missiles into Russia. And everyone's freaking out about it. And this person has posted these headlines. Ukraine says Russia hit it with ICBM. Zelensky says Putin's terrified.
Sure he is.
And clear escalation, threatens to use it against the U.S. I have seen pretty reliable other reports that they didn't even use this ICBM, so it's all bullshit.
Can we just cover again? I'm not great with acronyms. What does it stand for again?
Intercontinental. Oh, this says IRBM. What is
Urban.
R? Intercontinental ballistic missile. So the articles say ICBM. Maybe it's
Maybe
a
it's
miss.
just a typo.
Yeah, it might have been a typo. Anyway, the point is, it's a missile that could easily reach to other European countries, and
Which again, like
Well-
Putin was never interested in invading Europe.
I know.
Like that's some.
I know.
It.
And now Britain is doing everything they can to just like provoke this into some larger war. It really is insane. But anyway, so the media, much of the media is losing their goddamn minds because it's useful for them to lose their right? Ukraine wants to exaggerate the threat. Britain wants to exaggerate the threat. The U.S., much of the U.S. media wants to exaggerate it in order to facilitate many of these countries, NATO countries, going at Russia. But it's not even clear that they actually used one of these. But even if they had, it's like you fucking gave long-range missiles to
You've been
Ukraine
desperately trying to get them to do this
and
for the past 5 years.
and told them to fire them deep into Russia. Like,
Yeah, what would be the response if Russia came to Mexico and fired missiles into the U.S. from Mexico? What do you
I know.
think would happen?
I know. Or even before just the firing missiles, you had what was going on in the Donbass since 2014.
Yeah.
So imagine Russia starts funding and arming Mexican Nazis at the border of Texas.
Mexican Nazis. Wow.
Yeah, Mexican Nazis at the
That's
border of...
something I've never thought of.
Oh, then you've never had the tacos down the street here. But Mexican Nazis at the border of Russia, and they're at the border of Texas, and they're killing. It's like 15,000. I think I have that number right. I don't know, but anyway, they're killing people in that border region who are culturally American, and like
Right.
consider themselves American, speak English, speak only English, like those type of things. They're just being executed by these Russian-funded Mexican Nazis. Would the U.S. be like fine with it?
Yeah.
Would the U.S. be cool with it?
You know what? This feels very much like, because I interviewed Ben Norton a few weeks ago, or whenever that was, a week ago. I don't know. Time is so
Just keep
ridiculous.
saying numbers.
Yep. 4 years ago. No, and that's also up at projectcensored.org if you want to listen to the radio show. And it was basically talking about BRICS and how Russia is economically doing fine. They're certainly not worried about losing the war in Ukraine. And to me, it just feels like, so the BRICS nations, which is a growing number of nations that represent, like 40% of the world's economy at this point, if not more, they're all over here like being like, hey, how can we work together economically? How can we? And the US is over here like an angry, petulant, I don't even know, like banshee being like, nah, 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 like just freaking the fuck out
Right.
that these people are having this like, adult conversation about how to move forward, and the US is just losing its mind and like trying to throw shit, like at the playground, just like throwing shit.
Or like a monkey
and
throwing
Russia's
their
just
shit.
like, can you just stop? And China's like, can we all just stop? And it's like the whole world, except for the United States and some Europeans that are still under the boot of the United States and think it tastes like freedom. The rest of the world is like, these people are fucking crazy, and I want nothing to do with this. And the US is just going to continue to fall like a Led Zeppelin, as it were.
I was gonna say like a bad
Flan.
flan or something.
I mean, it doesn't really fall; it just deflates. I guess either. Choose your metaphor.
Well,
Analogy?
and Trump and Elon Musk have these plans of ripping up a lot of the U.S. government in order. Now, their reason for doing it is to try and sell off the parts, much like Javier Milei is doing in Argentina. You sell the pieces of the country to the rich. And that's what they want to do. They want to rip up and own the
like we
portions
don't
of the
already
US.
have that.
But the ripping up is also probably going to facilitate the quick decline of the U.S. empire. So, like, accidentally, like.
Also, yes, that is the name. That is the name of that's why they're called Led Zeppelin, because when somebody found out that Jimmy Page was putting together this super group, they said one of like these music critics or whatever producers said that will like be as successful as
float
launching a Led Zeppelin.
It'll float like a Led Zeppelin. And apparently this is a theme because I don't know whether he was lying, but he told what's his name, Billy Armstrong, told the story about Green Day and said he was told by the guidance counselor it'll be a Green Day in hell before you, which is weird because it's supposed to be Cold Day, but anyway, Green Day in hell before you have before you make it as a band or something like that. So anyway, that being said, last story, because I want to get to this one. Biden's promises to protect forests. Forests.
Forests is, I like forests. You're gonna make me do ProPublica in 2 minutes? Jesus. Okay.
You know, we don't have to stop on the minute.
Oh no, I turned into a pumpkin at 4 o'clock sharp. I've got less than 2 minutes.
It's 4 o'clock. She passes out,
yeah.
hits her head on the desk.
My handlers only wound me till 4 o'clock. After that, I deflate like a flan.
I think it's supposed to
be.
be.
Do you call that a callback?
Is it fire would like us to know it's souffle?
Well,
do flans deflate?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway,
I don't cook.
Okay, so back.
I just warm up fake chicken nuggets.
Oh, God, I know. In 2022, way back in the olden days, in 2022, President Joe Biden announced a new effort to protect old forests, which are key to the fight against climate change. By the way, this is ProPublica, and they do amazing work.
Also key to the fight to have oxygen. That's another key thing.
Well, that's kind of the fight against climate change, you know.
I like oxygen.
You're a fan?
Fanboy.
So now, this sounds really nice, which like this is just always how the Democrats do things, right? It sounds so nice. And look at this picture. Scroll to that picture. How nice that looks.
Flowers.
Like little cherry blossoms and shit. And dude, you know, maybe he still knew where he was at the time. It was 2022.
God, he
and
gave
it's-
a whole speech about protecting forests.
Oh my God, yes.
Wow.
But wait, it gets better. Not for the trees and not for us, but it gets better in terms of the story arc. This tragic
Look at
comedy.
They couldn't have footed the bill for a slightly larger banner for Earth Day here. It's like the size of a large shoe.
You know what that reminds me of? Stonehenge.
Oh yeah, Spinal
And
Tap.
Spinal Tap. So when are we getting the actual model? Oh no, that's it.
I would love to think there was a moment where they were like, "This is how big the Earth Day sign is." I wanted it to be 20 feet. I thought you said
20
feet.
inches. Okay. So the Bureau of Land Management has allowed timber companies to cut those old growth forests at a faster pace since Biden's executive order
Whoa,
than in the decade
whoa.
that preceded it.
You're saying the Democrats said they were going to do one thing and did a different thing?
I know it's really
Hold on.
I know. It's very confusing. So basically like the Bureau of Land I don't really have time to go into the specifics here, but basically the Bureau of Land Management has launched a new war against old growth forests. And right after, I almost said Trump, right after Biden basically said that we're going to protect those forests, and conservation groups are trying to sue over this. And they oftentimes end up winning because there was this executive order that Biden put out. But here's the thing. There's too much to keep up with. I mean, when I was in Northern California talking to these tree sitters, they were like, there's 400,000 acres that just one company owns. There's no way that we can keep up with it. So this is, again, something that the Democrats do well. They'll sign some executive order that says, like, you know, and Obama did this with coal mining too. He said he was going to clean up coal slurries, which is great because this is just where the coal companies dump all of their refuse from coal mining. It's extremely contaminated water and just like coal sludge and disgusting chemicals. And so he signed an executive order that was like, we're going to clean that up. It's like, we're not going to just let it sit there and fester. Fine print. Coal companies are still allowed to let that slurry sit there for 3 years before they clean it up. At which point, you don't have to be a biologist to figure this one out. At which point, all of the chemicals, all of that disgusting like metal cocktail has already seeped into the ecosystem. So you did nothing, you piece of shit, but you get to claim that you did, which is exactly what Biden's doing here. He gets to claim that, oh, I did something to protect these forests, when in reality, you didn't do shit. And the Bureau of Land Management is just going like absolutely, is having like a field day in these old growth forests, and the tree sitters can't keep up with it in terms of direct action, and their legal counterparts can't keep up with it in the courts. So the Bureau of Land Management gets what they want because they're like, well, we'll just cut and ask questions later or deal with lawsuits later.
Right.
And so this is like that quintessential Democrat way of doing things. And so this is also why I, always say, like, wherever you are, there is some kind of environmental shit show happening. Engage in it in any way that you can. I know that we all can't be tree sitters, but we can all try to engage in these fights through various ways of creative support. And especially with this kind of BS, which is, I don't think, going to get any better under Trump. But perhaps you'll just be more honest about it.
I heard Trump is a real environmental guy, real tree hugger.
Yeah.
They're often trying to start press conferences, and he's like, I just got to go talk with the trees for a moment. And he just sits out there quietly, communes with the trees.
It's beautiful, really.
It really is beautiful. Yeah.
And so, and I think I'll just say this before I wrap up. Some of this is also can also be as simple as like being somebody who surveys and who goes to these places and catalogs things. For instance, like they're supposed to, the Bureau of Land Management is supposed to like survey and create a review that will look at the impacts on the ecosystem of a clear cut, which by the way, it's never good, but they bullshit their way through it. But they hire people to look for like endangered species, for instance. And then if they don't find any, then they're like, okay, we didn't find any, so there must not be any endangered species here, because of course that's how things work.
Yeah.
So there has been in the past where like people actually go into spaces, survey it, you have like the metadata on like a DSLR or something, you take a picture of an endangered species and then you can submit that.
Oh my
I'm
God.
not
Can
saying
you please just bring endangered species with you? Just collect them somewhere else, bring them in. Be like, I found a Komodo dragon in the middle of Washington, D.C. We got to save the trees. That'd be amazing. It'd be wonderful.
So, and here's the thing. I'm not saying it will solve the thing, but we don't have a silver bullet answer to this. So my point is we can all do something, even if it's just that you have a camera and live in areas that are under threat by the Bureau of Land Management.
And Eleanor has an amazing documentary also called To the Trees that you can watch about saving trees, the efforts, and also the scams that are used by these logging companies to destroy our trees.
It's at tothetreesfilm.com.
tothetreesfilm.com. Okay, we're going to wrap up, but a couple of notes. Eleanor is the co-host of Project Censored. You should absolutely check that out. It's a podcast, a radio show, all those things. My show is also, this show is also Common Censored as a podcast. You can look that up. My other show, the other days of the week, is called Dangerous Ideas, and you can look that one up. And I have a new podcast that's just my comedy. Woo! That's called Just Comedy. Look that up. We are so close. We're at like 98 Spotify 5-star ratings, and I'm just looking for the 2 people to push us over the edge, just knock us over the edge. So that would be amazing if you can give it a review. It's free to listen. It's called Just Comedy. And the last thing, leecamp.simpletix.com is the where you can grab your $5 tickets, whether you want to attend or not. Just support the show. Grab a ticket. You grab a ticket for a friend. How about that? Grab a ticket. Be like, look, I know you don't know who this guy is. You might not even like him, but you're coming to this goddamn Zoom show. How about that? Rope them in.
Pants optional. And hats are optional too, unless you're Philip, and Philip has to wear.
You're really on the pants optional.
Well, because here's the thing: as somebody who doesn't really like to get dressed up to go out, the fact that I can sit on my couch, and I mean not in this instance because I'm partaking, but the fact that I could sit on the couch in my underwear and a bathrobe and watch something, that's way better than having to go to a place, pay for an overpriced drink that's mostly just tonic water and very little vodka. This is so much better.
Robe is optional. You can do the robe, though. You can have a cat on your lap. Most comedy clubs frown upon that if you bring a cat on your lap. But
oh my God, but I would love that.
Okay, December 11th and 14th, and I will see you Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Keep fighting.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
Same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha